Hello, and welcome to Coffee with the Civil Conversation. I'm your guest, your host, and your contestant, Kenny Tarquinio, where everyone wears this sweater. This week, I am joined by my friend Sierra, who is clearly already done with me, as we talk about something that we talk about a lot. We like to talk about movies. In
Yes,
the distant
we do.
past, we almost tried to form a movie club together.
Hell brought that to
Yeah.
a grinding halt.
It's okay. So, what I wanted to talk about with movies, not just like broadly, but specifically the movie industry that's been occurring as of lately. It seems like a lot of the market for films nowadays is in old ideas. There's reboots and remakes galore. Like, basically every movie that you loved from the 80s is either getting a sequel or is being remade. Star Wars, Star Trek, and
Spider-Man.
all of the stars, and
All the stars.
and all of the superheroes is
Basically.
also with blockbusters and like multi-universes and how like comic books and all this stuff. So I wanted to ask, what's your like, how do you think the current industry is going with like, it's like a multi-million-dollar industry, but like it's kind of going off ideas that aren't original.
I just think now the multi-million-dollar industry is just focused on the multi-million-dollar part.
Yes.
And they're just trying to do what has a quick turnaround. It might not seem quick when you take like 3 years, but to them, going off of old ideas doesn't take a lot of money. But if you generate a whole new one, you need a whole new set of writers, you need a whole set of makeup artists, and they have to learn their craft for the specific movie. It takes a lot more time, and I just think people are used to old remakes and are more comfortable with reboots because they know the story, but there's interesting things to it. People are just really accustomed to old things.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help that we don't like us as like consumers don't request something that's out of this world or new. Like recently, it's been books into movies.
Yes.
A lot more, like with A Wrinkle in
Definitely.
Time and Simon, P.S. Simon, I Love You. That's not it. Not it at all. But some Simon versus whatever. That one.
Simon versus the Homo sapien agenda.
Yeah, but that's not what the movie's called.
The movie's called Love, Simon.
Love Simon. I got P.S. I Love You and Simon mixed up. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not doing great.
You're
but
fine.
yeah.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite videos that points this out was called "The Epidemic of Passable Films" by the Nerd Writer. It's a great video essay. Watch it. And it talks about how movies now are borrowing from, like, movies typically tend to tell human experience, and movies nowadays are telling human experience through the lens of other movies. So he played about like 4 different movies, like the Love movie with Will Smith, where like he was literally a psychologist of love,
Yeah.
and a movie where Kevin Hart was like a best man that could be hired out, that had
Yeah,
like Josh Gad,
basically the best
and, like,
man.
Yeah, and then also Pineapple Express, and like showed how like they all have a scene that's exactly the same.
I love Pineapple Express though.
No, that's actually a really good film. But yeah, I think it's interesting that a lot of the current movies, because the way it also seems very similar to the studio system era when movies were first getting started, and like there'd be like people would just go to the movies and they wouldn't remember what they saw. Kind of like with TV, like you would just like flip through the channels, people would go to the movies like almost every night, and like there'd always be a new movie because they were just pumping them out. They were cheap to make, and like
They had no choice. or
Yeah,
else they would
it's-
lose their
'cause
consumer base.
all they would do is all they could do was just make movies, so they just made a bunch of them. And that kind of reminds me of what's going on today, but like it just like it seems so disposable in a way.
I mean, another aspect of it is not just the ideas itself, but like if you look at movies that come out around this like a month of each other, you can see like some of them will have, especially if they're the same genre, have like the same music,
Yes.
the same plot line, the same stereotypical characters, and it's not that noticeable to someone who is not us, and doesn't is not trained to like analyze these things, but
Yeah.
it's more than the ideas, and people are just one, lazy, and
Yeah.
money, and they've lost their creative edge when getting so comfortable because they've done this so long for so many
Yeah.
movies, and they're like whatever at this point.
And I don't think anyone goes out to make like a like passable or like sometimes even horrible movie. Like they're trying to like just like do their job, and like they end up sometimes just like according to like critics or the audience, it's always just like did it hit or did it miss? And like I feel a lot of movies are just coming out or just like within like that like going off Rotten Tomatoes score. They're all kind of like typically they're kind of crappy. But I think it's also very odd to me because every favorite movie of mine has come out within the last 7 years, and I feel like that's really weird because a lot of people like have a favorite movie I feel like from when they were a kid, and all of mine like my newest favorite movie came out last year, and that
What
was
was it?
Coco.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think with like Disney, big parent company of Pixar, doing this whole thing where they're now remaking all of their old copyrighted
Like the
fairy
Jungle
tales
Book.
into like the Jungle Book and Beauty and the Beast into these now new live action ones, and like kind of like trying to gain money off that intertextuality where people will be like, oh, this from the old story, I'll still go see the
Yeah.
movie for that reason. I feel like Pixar is like kind of doing justice to be like, hey, Disney has some stuff under wraps and is still thinking of new cool original ideas, especially like with like Inside Out, which came out, which was like a
That was a
movie
good
that I think
movie.
people needed.
Yeah.
It wasn't my favorite, but also like I was like, that's a
It
good
has
choice.
a
Yeah.
peculiar essence to it, which
Yeah.
is great. It's new. It was good. I like it. Again, not my favorite movie, and
Yeah.
I agree with you in the spot. Like my favorite movie came out around like 6 to 7 years ago.
Yeah, which is it?
and it's not Coco,
That's okay. I mean,
but well, not around in that timeline. I have a
Okay.
couple favorite movies, so
Same.
it's like
I have like 4.
the
Coco
one
is the 4th.
I watch a lot is Bright on Netflix.
Oh wait, is that the one that we talked about in? Oh, I thought you said you didn't like that movie.
I didn't like the prequel they're coming out with,
Oh, okay.
or the sequel.
Oh, okay.
I like the first one. Just
Oh,
the
okay.
second.
Okay.
No.
Okay. My
That's
bad.
a little. You're fine.
Yeah.
No, it's when you take live action movies, going back to live action, it's a little different from taking a remake and making it something else, because like typically live actions come from anime or
Yeah.
like cartoons, so it's not so much a remake or a reboot. It's just, I can't figure out the exact word.
It's just kind of like it's like an adaptation
Yeah.
of sorts,
Yeah.
and like it's a very different style
It's
of
in
like
its own category, but
Yeah.
still, it's not a great idea for
Yeah.
some things, like the Death Note one.
Since you brought it up, I'm gonna ask, are you
God.
excited or sad about the new Avatar The Last Airbender live action? It's with the original creators, and it's gonna have one of the original composers.
So
I'm super hyped.
I'm happy that it's with the original people.
Yes.
That saves face.
I think that's what it needs. And they also, like, they came out with the message, they were straight. They were like, we're going to do it with culturally appropriate actors. We're not going to let M. Night
Yeah.
Shyamalan's movie happen again.
Plus it's Netflix.
Yeah.
So it's like I have a little more hope
Yeah.
with Netflix. So
Oh,
since
yeah.
it's more contained than like Disney.
Disney.
The Star Wars remakes.
I thought the first one was good. The second one, I was just like,
It's I have a thing with Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And despite it being a remake, it was good, but like man.
J.J. Abrams also directed my favorite movie, so
I love J.J. Abrams.
Super 8. So that's why I
Super
was
8's
that's why I
really
was a
good.
fan of A New Hope, because it's essentially like pretty much like every other movie he makes.
Yeah. But speaking of like just scores and just how people feel about movies in general, Venom came out on Friday.
I was going to see it. I might write an article about it.
I'm going to see it.
Okay.
I love Venom from
Yeah.
comic books and like Spider-Man stories going off of that. It didn't do great.
Oh.
A lot of people didn't like it.
The opening weekend sales weren't that good?
No. But there was this article that I saw that said Venom isn't breaking box office, but will it get up there with the new cult fantasy, like fantastic pieces? And I was
Yeah.
like, I can see that. So
Yeah.
it might not do good blockbuster-wise, but that's kind of all that they care about. But when it gets
Yeah.
into its own like little section, like the occult movies or like, you did a project on like the Virgin suicides.
Yeah, I
Stuff like
I
that.
talked about it. Yeah, that yeah, I think cult followings are really interesting, and that's like definitely something people should look into because how does that happen? But
Yeah.
so yeah, I think I don't really know if we reached a consensus. We just had a conversation
We
about
did.
movies.
It was everywhere.
Yeah, but we talked about good stuff, and I
Yeah, good
appreciate
stuff.
talking movies with you. And yeah, you can talk movies with people. You don't have to have taken classes in film to talk about
No.
movies or to appreciate the movie industry and all that. So thank you for joining me this week on Coffee with a Civil Conversation. I'm your host, your guest, and your contestant, Kenny Tarquinio. See you next week.